Welcome to the August meeting for the City of Boulder Police Oversight Panel. Just a reminder for panel members online to say anything out loud so we can have that for the record. And thank you to staff for taking the minutes. And we acknowledge the Arapaho, Ute, and Cheyenne tribes, the traditional custodians of the land on which the Police Oversight Panel and the Boulder Police Department operate, and pay our respects to their elders past and present. I also like to remind the panel members of the agreements we made between ourselves during our team retreat this year about the way we treat each other and the way that we treat this business. Also like to welcome the public and any potential press to the meeting, and Zayda, I'd also like to welcome you as well.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
I'd like to welcome the panel members online and also in person, and acknowledge everyone for being here, and thank you for getting through things that may have been hard during the week. We can all appreciate that. Things that may have been challenging in this moment. Members of the public, we have the Q&A feature, so we will answer small questions in the Q&A, but you can save your bigger things for the public comment at the end of the meeting. Our web address to submit complaints outside of the panel meeting is bouldercolorado.gov/services/police-oversight. And you can contact us directly at Police Oversight Panel, bouldercolorado.gov. All our meetings are public and are posted to our website. And we will start with our agenda, which will be the approval of minutes from the August 12th meeting. Okay, thank you. And then we will have our committee updates. First, starting with our vote. Did we vote?
Yeah. We need to vote.
So can we vote by a show of hands to approve the minutes from the August meeting? Okay. Our next item is community updates, starting with community engagement and communications.
We had an event this Saturday. What's a Boulder? Thank you for everyone who volunteered there. I think it was fairly slow for a booth, but we did get to talk to a few people. Some of them thought that we were unnecessary, but when asked, they thought that police, that people with uniform and weapons shouldn't be accountable to anyone, then they didn't have really an answer to that. So that was good. I mean, that was good. That was a good conversation. They were willing to listen to that. People were really excited about the brochures, especially city people. It seems like everybody in the city knew that we were like having our brochures done, and we're really excited to see them both in Spanish and in English. I don't know. I mean, I was there just for an hour and a half, just about. Victor, you were there about the same time. Anybody wants to comment on that, Bill? Lizzie? What was your experience?
Like I was there during a really late time in the last hour, so other folks may have more to share.
Probably about the same. It was just people who, like, they would stand back about 10 feet because I think they thought if they stood too close, we might engage them. And we did even when they were 10 feet away. So, come on in a little closer. And I think it was just good exposure. I think people walked around, they saw that we were there. Some folks actually asked questions. You walked away right when somebody came there whose mom was visiting from Chicago. She was talking about what they do there and wondered if it was the same as what we were doing. So I think it was a good start. I mean, what I was telling Milan is that I think that when we do these things, we just have to figure out and make sure it's people who actually live in the city versus bigger events that attract people from out of state that don't really care about what we're doing on the police panel. But I think it was a great start. It was nice to have the little flag and all the flyers and everything.
Yeah,
So
thank you, Selena.
we have everything set up to continue to visual and some city events.
Yeah, I think overall for a first event that we had, it was good to start a little slower and, have conversations. Some people came to us and started talking to us about drag races on, Flagstaff and 36 and all that, and thinking that we were the police, but no. But yeah, there were a few things like that, but so I think we need to be more visible, so I'm looking forward to seeing where else we can go next.
Sherry, how was it for you?
I had gone last year just as a spectator, so it was basically what I anticipated. I think one thing that we should try to figure out is something that is more engaging, so the people who want to stand 10 feet away instead have a reason to step closer into our web, and that we can engage them better.
Like having bingo cards
Yeah, we need to be on the bingo circuit next year.
and the kids there so that we can talk to the parents.
There was some like scavenger hunt bingo card, so people would come up and want to find out if we weren't, so I don't really know what the situation was, but yeah, next year we need to be people who stamp off so that we can have more of that engagement.
Actually, I hid the candy because I was getting annoyed by the little kids coming up, and I was like, I'm here for business and we're just here for the candy. So I actually hid the candy behind the thing. I don't know if you noticed that,
I
but
didn't know how it got behind the.
and so it was interesting that we're part of this larger community. We're one booth of like 40, right? And so there's a lot of people volunteering in different ways. So we're not just isolated, but we're part of this thing. So that was nice to see. I'm just curious, so what's our next event? Now that we have this nice material and, stuff, do we have another event on the horizon for the end of the year?
Right now, we don't. I think we have to look at the what's gonna happen in the city. But yeah, I mean, if anybody please, the community share.
One thing that I need to do in the next week or two, now that we have literature, is distribute it to some of the places that we were talking about, like the jail and courthouse. The community court that's now held out here on Thursday mornings might be a place to do something like that. But they've also asked for literature about 2 weeks ago, so that they could have that available.
And I think, I'm sorry.
So just, that is like the next thing that I intend to do for engagement in the very immediate future, is just ensuring that that literature is distributed to the places where I think it's going to be, seen by people who've had recent encounters and experiences with police officers.
And I think it shouldn't be only you doing that. I think it's our responsibility for us all to bring it to where we are operating, or, schools and businesses and places, law office, Jason. I mean, where people might need to see those things and be aware of it. And so I think. So that.
Oh, just want to add, to go into your point, Victor, I think that being brutally honest, I'm a little concerned about meeting the panel to big events, because the response that we have from the panel to volunteer is thin. And we already had to kind of pull out from one of the events because we didn't have enough volunteers. So I will say there are things happening. There are places that we could be, should be. But it can be always the same 3 faces or 4 faces that show up. So if we commit to attend and volunteer, I think, yes, we should definitely start looking for different events where we can be, kind of attend and table, but if not, it's very tough for, you know, having the same people attending all the time and for longer shifts because we're not splitting the load. So just want to say that because that is something that we have to consider now, like are we going to have enough people to make it, you know, in a way that is not a burden of Milan only or Sherry only if we're like a whole day somewhere, so. Yeah, just naming the elephant in the room.
And so we have some new tools in our toolkit that we didn't have last month. So if everyone has some business cards, which we have right here, there's boxes. If everyone has a stack of flyers in English and Spanish and some brochures, it could just become part, it's not an extension to say, oh, you want to talk about the panel, I have some stuff right here versus, well, you can come find us in 3 weeks and maybe you can meet us. So we can all share the load and just our daily outreach. We have a meeting with the chief coming up. We don't want to ask our questions over and over. So maybe someone has a question when you're handing out this material, you know, like what are the other, I almost said kids, what are the other adults at Naropa? Do they have a question for the chief, right? Like, what is a homeless community? They have a question for the chief, right? There's an event tomorrow afternoon right here in this Central Park that I could take some of that material to. It's a Feet Forward event. So yeah, just simply by having some materials in your car, in your backpack, is an easy way to help carry that load.
What did you say that meeting with the chief was?
It's coming up on
September 23rd.
September 23rd. There's a second part on commitment to engagement. Is that what we were talking about? Or is that something separate?
Probably is that, yeah.
Sure. I was just gonna say that I think, you know, Victor and myself, when we went to speak with the public defenders several months ago now, I thought that that was a sweet spot of engagement. You know, we were there, people were already gathered, it wasn't a huge lift. You know, we were able to answer questions, people were interested in it. So if we can find some of those other opportunities, whether it's organizations or community groups that are already meeting to be able to come and do, you know, a 20-minute conversation that's half presentation and half questions. I think that is, you know, an easy lift for the people involved. And especially if you're, you know, part of a community already, you know, then that's a great way to bridge into that community where you're already a known entity.
Anything else from?
No, I think you said it, Victor. I think it's up to all of us to commit to engaging this community and to play our roles with the people who we have access to. Just wondering if Chico or Madeline have anything to add to that, but. No, okay. All right, thank you. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you. So next we have an update from the Legacy Committee.
Chico, do you want me to dive right in or do you want to say anything first as chair?
Just go ahead. I was missing in action, so
Okay.
you're the right person to say something.
So we've been talking about this for the last few meetings, but we've been working on sort of an exploration of some data that was provided to us by UPD. We have a dashboard to share today. The slight wrinkle is I don't seem to be able to get into the Boulder Power BI space. I just assumed our credentials were full credentials because I know you can get in there, but we may not actually be able to access it directly, which
You want to?
we could share it from your computer today, but then we'll figure out how.
Okay.
The goal of this tool is so that you guys can like actually explore the data and look around and ask your own questions and come back to us with more areas to explore. So try use yours today and then we'll figure it out. Sherry and I and Selena have been working on this for many weeks now. We are getting there. So if you can go to the browser. Actually, I can show it in here if I need to, but it's not gonna be like the.
Oh,
user experience there. It's all right.
Maybe it's matches.
Yeah, maybe it is maybe it's just I suppose. We can share it from the dashboard if needed. Well. Maybe this, yeah, try and. Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's.
I have something.
Fix it down.
Okay, there you go. Awesome. Oh, what did I share? Oh, is that the? The browser version. Yeah. Sure. Okay, so at some theoretical future date, hopefully close to now, you guys will have direct access to this, which is something you can reach in a browser through your Boulder login. So we're gonna share some visuals from it today in the meeting publicly, of course, but the dashboard itself is only for you guys at this point. I'm gonna kind of give you like the tour and show you how to use this and talk a little bit about what it includes, some serious limitations of what it includes that you'll want to keep in mind as you go through it. But we'll kind of do the tour quickly, and then if you have questions as you go through it, let me know anytime and I can walk you through. All right, so this is the dashboard. This is like an intro page with some information about what's included, those limitations I mentioned. And then all the pages you see on the left are the pages of the dashboard. So we'll go through these briefly, but this is where you can actually see the data. But starting with just what we're looking at here, we asked for data on calls for service to BVSD schools. So the interest was in kind of understanding police activity in schools, whether they're called like directly to the school for something involving a student or activity that might be happening like right in front of the school or nearby the school. We just kind of wanted to explore what we might find in that data. And we had a few different questions, things like, just like, what does police activity look like? Why are police coming to schools? What kind of calls are the reason that police are coming? What is the disposition? What's the result of that call? Getting arrested? Is someone getting a report being written? Like just sort of learning about what that looks like. And then we also had an interest in understanding if we could see any sort of difference in the data between the time period before and after school resource officers were removed from BVSD schools. We were curious if that could either mean that calls for service went drastically up or fell drastically if there was less of a police presence. So we didn't do like a statistical analysis yet at this point, mostly because of the limitations we're going to talk about. So everything you see in the data is very much descriptive. We need to be very careful with any like big statements we make from the data. Know that if you see something interesting in here, we'll dig into it further and do some more analysis if we really want to like make sure that it's a true insight that we might want to act on. Okay, so what you're going to see in here is calls for service data. Anytime someone calls 311 or 911 or a call comes in from like another jurisdiction's dispatch and police go to either a school address or any address within 350 feet of a school. And you can imagine that's like a city block almost. So there's a lot that's happening around and near schools that don't actually have anything to do with maybe the students, the staff, or the school directly. So that's the biggest caveat in here as you go through. Many of these calls are not actually necessarily related to schools or students. So that's the biggest reminder to keep in mind.
When did they start moving police from campuses?
2021. So there was a vote, I don't remember what the actual.
That's county, like an ordinance.
Yeah, like BVSD decided to remove them. I think it was in September, maybe 2020, and then they actually were removed sometime in 2021. But I wanted to point people also, there was a really great, do this, do you know why it's like even real similarly? It's the start line. This link here, BVSD Equity Council presentation on SRO activities. Yes, thank you, Sherry. Is a really interesting presentation if you're interested in SRO activities in schools that was given to the BBSD Equity Council when this discussion was happening. So they have a lot more data in that presentation about what the students, who police was called to students for, like the demographics of that group. We don't have that here, so definitely take a look if you're interested. All right. So for some reason, this mouse is lagging a lot. We're gonna do our best here, but this is gonna be a little bit of a challenge. Okay, so the first page is just our overall summary. You can see every single call here by year, all call types, all call dispositions. The three kind of main data points you're gonna see on the dashboard. Gosh. Is this a touch screen? No. Oh, okay. This is, I wish. Find the solution now. Thank you. Okay, so the three things you're gonna see are like number of calls. That's usually gonna be kind of the big visual here. And then you're gonna see call reasons. So that's like the category of the type of call for why the police were called. Things like a medical call, animal complaint, welfare check. And then you're gonna see the disposition. So that's the result of the call. It's doing better now.
Minimize the Zoom window.
It is on her, on this one.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but
With that small
Yeah,
bar.
Or you can move it down.
Speak with this.
Well,
small bar.
it's,
it is on my computer.
oh, is this
No,
yours?
let's her move it up.
Sure.
Minimize that and see if it's underneath it.
And so Lizzie, this is what you created with the data that you got from the city?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this like dashboard is just a visualization tool to make it easier for you guys to click around and look through the data.
Okay.
Okay, we'll make it work.
I can't see.
Under this window, there are two tables that show you all the calls by reason and all the calls by call disposition. And you'll see this data on some other slides. This is a little crazy to look at, but I wanted you to be able to see like the overall full picture. You can see this is just like a totally basic trend line in orange. You can see it's like slightly
thank you, Selena.
increasing. Okay, it is yours. But if we look per year, these little gray buttons up here are always gonna give you different views of the data. So if you click here, you can see by year. So our general trend, dip in 2020, understandably, but then it's kind of been slowly increasing back up since then. It'll be interesting if we can eventually get 2024 to see if that continues. The other thing to know here on the left, in every slide, you're gonna have these same filters. So this is where you can really dig down and like start exploring. If you want to look at, say, only high schools, you can say, I only want to look at schools that go up to 12th grade. You can see how those numbers change. Anything on the left is going to filter the center and also the tables on the right. So you can see the top most frequent call reason at high schools across all 6 of these years were these safe to tell calls, followed by medical call and welfare check. You can do that for each grade level. You can filter by call reason if you really want to dig into something specific, by call disposition, so you can see anything that resulted in an arrest. It's very small numbers, so you're not going to see a ton of data there, fortunately. You can filter yes or no to SRO schools. Not every school had a school resource officer, so if you click this flag, it will give you kind of a shortcut, oh gosh, to looking only at those schools so you can get a slightly better comparison. So you can see it's pretty interesting here. We really don't see any different from the overall trend. If we look at non-schools, this is a really fun challenge. Oh. It doesn't. Okay, I'll ditch it. Okay, I won't do too many filters. That's too difficult. You can also look at school hours. These calls are 24 hours a day, and it's probably a little more likely if the call is at 2 a.m. It's probably not hopefully having to do with students. So I added that flag as well. If you say yes to school hours, it'll just show you calls between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Not perfect, but like typically when students would be in or near school.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Like when I see medical call, those health their check, do you have like subcategories under that, or is it just a very general?
Yeah, so what we have, this is the level of granularity for this data set, but like. If you're in here and you find something interesting and you want to dig in further, like then that would be a great next step for the legacy committee. So
So I'm just wondering, medical call can be a number of things.
totally, yeah, and there are lots of categories. There's maybe more than, there's a lot of stuff in here. But we can dig deeper for sure. I know we only had like 10 minutes for this. Do we need to wrap up? Did we get to? Oh, I thought that's what I saw. Maybe that wasn't right. We keep going?
Keep going.
Okay, awesome. All right, so this is all pretty much the same data. There's a little bit of extra detail in the last page, but I just created some different views to make it easier for you to really dig in on what you're interested in. So the first page was kind of the summary page. You had overall calls just to get a sense of the trend. You had top, sort of tables by disposition and by problem. This page is more focused on disposition. So here you have by year 2018 to 2023, total calls for service to or near schools by the disposition. So you can see there are quite a few of them, which makes it a little bit difficult to view. But like clear is by far the most common disposition. I was curious, I was hoping we'd have a BP person here today because I don't have a good picture of what set of scenarios that covers.
Sterling's on call.
Sterling, oh, you are here. Sterling. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Sorry, I'm traveling, so it took me a while to get on.
You're good. No, my fault. I should have noticed you there. Any chance you can give us some info on what a clear disposition would typically entail for a call for service?
Basically, that is very basic in terms of means that the officer is just not on that call anymore. So it can be cleared with with a warning, clear with no action, clear with an arrest. So it is very basic. That it just means that they're done with the call.
Okay. Would there typically be like clear and like would there always be that additional disposition?
There should be.
Okay.
But again, it's really just dependent upon the officer, but typically it would be like you clear with a report or you clear with, like I said, with whatever else it would be.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that. That's helpful. I can change a little bit about how we're structuring this to make this sort of and a little more clear. So that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So some other stuff in here, you can see report is common. That's our orange. Purple is, I think, similarly procedural, call handled. So there's a lot of that stuff in here. If you want to get a sense of what this looks like without some of those like noisy categories, that's when the filters would come in. You come over here, if I can do it. Do call disposition. We'll select all, and then we'll get rid of call handled and clear. Now you can see we have lots of reports resulting, lots of unable to locate, I think. If you want to see how often we actually have something like an arrest, one of our original concerns was like, how often are kids getting arrested for things that are occurring in school that might be like discipline related? We could dig in on this further, of course, but just looking at the numbers are relatively low. So 25 to 30 per year across all BBSD schools, which is
Those are kids being arrested?
well, no, so this is again where the limitations come in. This is someone being arrested near a school.
Which is very
To a
different.
few things. Doesn't change things. Well, actually, it halved it. So we're happy to not see huge numbers in here, but like we could request, what do these actually look like? Can we look at the actual addresses on those calls to see if they are calls to the school or calls around the school? Because we do have that information. It just will take a lot to sift through if we're talking about 15,000 records. All right, questions on this page?
Is there a way you can search by like arrest juvenile?
We do not have any information on the sort of related person. we have some victim demographics, but the way the data we have isn't super helpful for the questions we're trying to answer. But we don't really have information about the person related to the report or the arrest.
So busy, if I may. So the data that you're using right now, you don't have that information, but that information is available somewhere else in another.
I'm sure
data set.
it exists, yeah.
Okay, it's just a matter of asking and then sorting through it.
Likely, although I don't know what. You never want to assume exactly how the data is structured and how easy it is to sort of get it in bulk in the style that we need. I know that Dr. Reinhardt pulled this for us and he said this took like 35 separate data wrangling steps to get this put together, so it's possible. I would assume it's relatively easy to get, but you never know. But we could discuss it with him for sure if we're interested.
Yeah, it would be interesting just because it seems like, I mean, this is VSD, but it's true for everything happening in the city that we need data that are very granular so that we can actually see a trend. And right here, we have no trend. And so I admire the work that you've been doing, but the data sets need to be a lot more granular for us to be useful.
Well, once we have a specific question we're trying to ask and answer, then we can take that to Dr. Reinhardt and say, here's exactly what we need. We were sort of starting from a place of like, we'll come in at a high level and then like craft the questions further. So
Yeah.
that's great if we come out of this by saying, here's what we need, here's our new question. Let's do it.
I also feel like we need and that data analysis is also observing the data and finding the questions from the data
Exactly.
rather than asking the question and then finding the data. So
Well,
I think it's.
you have to scope. I understand what you're saying, but it has to go both ways too, because you can't
does,
say,
it does.
give us all the data, right? Like it would be impossible to mine through that in a way that would be helpful for us. We have to ask for what we need. So the goal with this was like, let's start here to help us learn more about what we need. And then we can be more strategic with our next question. Yes, go ahead.
How do we submit a question?
Through the very formal process of asking me, Chico, or Jason. Anytime you want.
Yeah.
And so it's not like to like, you guys in fact, oh, we're gonna like ask this question. Can they handle a bunch of questions? So, I mean, I think there will always be challenges of like, how much time are we asking of the data staff, which is one person for BPD? And I think if we have 10 questions or 100 questions we're all really excited about, we'll probably want to prioritize as a group.
Okay.
We have not had that issue yet, so luckily we're good there. We have a document we've been working on to kind of collect options for priorities for the legacy committee. I can share that again, so you can add stuff there anytime, or just let us know anytime or come to a meeting and it'll be kind of a living document and discussion. Is that a question or a stretch?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I might as well ask what I was gonna ask before. So essentially, like, we could get to a point where we know where the data, right, we can know exactly what calls were happening at the school. Cause like my first instinct was like, basically, you know, what was just said was when you have an area that is around the school that's also being conglomerated into the calls, I feel like that kind of like muddles out like our target essentially of like where we're trying to find those patterns. So I'm just kind of reiterating just to, but essentially, yeah, so we can keep asking questions to kind of figure out how to make the system more accessible for understanding what we want to know, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like a prototype, you could say.
Totally. And I do think it would be really interesting to look at this with sort of the two halves, like literally called to the school, to the address of the school, the front office versus around the school.
Yeah,
The initial question, we did want to understand the surrounding impact as well.
got you.
So now we can kind of go in, it's gonna take a little bit of work, which is why we haven't done it yet. But we can basically go in and separate them out by address with some additional data. But you're exactly right. I think
That's really cool. Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question, but
course, super appreciate the work,
Yeah.
you know, but I think I would like to see more. Um. Sorry, oh. All right, great, thank you, everyone's paying attention. Thank you, so, this come, I mean, think about the scripters, or I'm trying to see what the who is being arrested? Like, I think from a perspective of where it's happening, you know, important, but for me, it's more important to know who. Because that, you know, if we know that there's, I don't know, 25 arrests, I wanna know who's getting arrested. Rather than, okay, there were 25, and what if those 25 are Hispanic kids? Or what if those 25 are actually not students and people from outside? So, I mean, there's different variables, but I do think that the human component to this is critical. And I don't know, I guess I'm curious to know if they are willing to provide that information. Because that's the key, like. You know, it's not about how many, it's about who and how. Does that make sense? So.
Of course, yeah, no, I mean, we have no reason to think they would not be up for.
Okay, I'm just thinking maybe for, because arrest information, I mean, there's arrests are public record, right? You can go to a jail board booking. And find out who's arrested. Yeah, I don't know, could that be, they're minors, so if they're students, they're minors, so I'm sure there are restrictions, so I'm wondering. How we can cover that.
My memory of, we got some early data for this. And my memory of that was. There was 20 arrests, there was one person. Is that your memory or something like
I
that?
know, so this whole request predates me on the panel. I think I don't know if I even saw the first data set, although we still have it, so let's go back and look.
And now there is the issue, you know. Some Hispanics would not call themselves Hispanic or of color, and it's up to the officer to put them. So we have some issues there. But as I seem to recall, it was all white people except for one black person.
Yeah.
And it was like 21.
And also sometimes it's the other way around,
Yeah.
that when they're reporting, they won't indicate I'm arresting 100% Hispanics, right?
I'm not, I guess my point is that the data that we did have didn't really support anything, and I question the data because I don't think that it's up to the officer
Yeah.
to keep that track. They may or may not.
Yeah, I think you have a great point there.
Victor?
When is our next legacy committee meeting?
26th.
26th, excellent.
So it sounds like a great place to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
So we will figure out how to share this, share it with the group ideally soon. You all can click around, come to the meeting, talk about it more.
Okay,
Okay, thanks, guys.
thank you so much for your.
That's awesome. Though. We appreciate that.
Great work, Lizzie.
Taco hands.
And Farah, we are ready for your presentation on the bylaws and Soledad.
Yep. Has presentation. Take care.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening. Hello, Farah.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Farah Muscadin, consultant to the City of Boulder. Very happy to be here and at this point where we're presenting the updated bylaws for approval by the panel. Next slide, please. And so, as you know, there was a subcommittee that was created, and I worked very closely with Soledad and Abigail to put together this updated draft of the bylaws. Next slide. And so this is very similar, almost identical to the presentation that I did on August 20th with some minor changes, but I'm just generally going to do an overview of what we updated and highlight some particular areas. So in the proposed bylaws, there are 17 articles. Primarily this section, the first 9, consists of ensuring that there was consistency between the bylaws and the ordinance that was passed last October. And so a lot of that was updating it and making sure the language was identical. Some changes that are notable is in Article 3, the land acknowledgement, we did utilize language from the city of Boulder to strengthen that language and make it clearer. We used the purpose statement from the ordinance. The panel's duties and responsibilities remained the same, identical to the ordinance. We did think it was important to add a section about the community agreements, which is essentially how the panel will work together with one another, and also their responsibilities to each other, not only as panel members, but as individuals and members of the community. And so the membership stayed the same, obviously, we did add some few responsibilities for the co-chairs. There were things that co-chairs were doing in practice that weren't necessarily memorials that we added. And then we really strengthened the meeting section, which I'll go into a little bit more. Next slide. And so the second half of the bylaws, the most notable section is the complaint process. And so what we decided to do is make that a little bit more high level and take kind of the granular information about the complaint process and create a complaint manual, which is still a work in progress. We did do significant changes to the committee based on feedback that we received from our public meetings. So right now, and I'll go into that a little bit further, but there is essentially one committee that every member of the panel serves on, but then there's also the ability to create ad hoc committees. So for example, the ad hoc committee to update the bylaws. This was a recommendation from a panel member to include a section about communication on behalf of the panel. So we did include that and also make it 2 sections. Section 1 is primarily about external communication, such as public statements. And then section 2 is more about internal communications amongst the panel members. We made it very clear in terms of how an amendment to the bylaw should be made. And then obviously, the confidentiality and the code of ethics, all of those were pretty consistent with the ordinance. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some highlights. There are 3 areas that I think was very important. You can go to the next slide for us to highlight in our discussion. But obviously, you had the draft since the beginning of August. It did not really change that significantly. We did incorporate the feedback that we received prior to me sending the final draft, but for the most part, it's pretty identical. But we took your feedback in terms of the order of business for the meeting and moved up public comment so that panel members would be able to hear kind of substantive conversation that the panel has prior to the panel going into closed session to talk about specific cases, so that fundamentally they wouldn't have to really sit to the end of the meeting to make a comment. So I think where we put it was a good compromise with the perspectives that we received. And then also note subsection 7, whereas community outreach and engagement will be a continuing item on your agenda going forward. Next slide, please. So some other matters, let me just move my cursor really quick. Some other matters that we changed in regards to the meeting section, we added the ability to call emergency and special meetings. I don't anticipate this is going to be something obviously that the panel does frequently, but the ability to be able to do that is important and something that should be contained in your bylaws. We did formalize a process for making a motion rather than, cutting and pasting Robert Rules of Order. We, just kind of did it step by step, as that is something that the panel does pretty much at every meeting with making motions. So we just thought it would be easier to clarify and make it, explain what that process should be, and also for amending the motion. So those were some key parts. And as these two sections are actually pretty consistent, I reviewed bylaws from other boards and commissions from the city of Boulder, and these two sections were contained in all the ones that I reviewed. So there is some consistency there. And then we established how voting should be conducted. Essentially, it could be by roll call vote, show of hands, but at any point, we did add language, a member can request a roll call vote. And for those that aren't nerds about Robert Rules of Order, what that means is that essentially each individual name is read out loud and they say yes, nay, or abstain. That's what a roll call vote means. We did make a slight modification to public comment from our last conversation about it. And basically the slight change is that if extra time is allowed, it cannot exceed 5 minutes. And so this was a compromise to have the 2 minutes, which is consistent with what the city does, allow either co-chair to give more time, but that time cannot exceed 5 minutes. Next slide, please. So the next important section to go over is the complaint process section. We talked about whenever you vote on cases to review them, that has to be an affirmative roll call vote. So going forward, if this is approved, if you, when you are voting on cases, you know, Selena will call each individual panel members to hear their vote, and so that vote is taken out loud. We memorialize the fact that 3 panel members must participate in the case review, and then we added language for new panel members that they will shadow a panel member that has done at least 3 case reviews prior to the new panel member doing their first. So essentially, it's just to allow a new panel member to crawl before they walk. We thought that that was important to put in there. And then the timeline is basically memorializing your current practices in terms of when you complete your reviews and submit your recommendations. And then we added some things for consideration. It's not an exhausted list, but things to consider when you're looking at a complaint. So for example, if there's a significant public interest, if it's an allegation of use of force, those are, you know, types of things that you should consider in terms of accepting a complaint for review. Next slide, please. So again, I already alluded to this, but since it's such a big change, I wanted to highlight it in our discussion, is that we included language to basically uplift and prioritize the Community Engagement Committee as a responsibility for all panel members. And then again, adding the ability to create ad hoc committees as needed. So for example, punting this to Lizzie, like you may want an ad hoc committee that looks specifically at data at school arrests, right? So that it's not necessarily within, well, if this is approved, there will no longer be a legacy committee, but you know, for a specific area of interest that panel members have, you have the ability to create an ad hoc committee to look into that for that specific purpose. So your ad hoc, so for example, if this approved this evening, the bylaws committee, the subcommittee is no longer, right? It was created for that specific purpose. So the work of the bylaws committee, if approved, will end this evening. So so I just wanted to make that clear and highlight those areas. I think that it was really helpful, and I can't remember who pushed the public meetings when we were first talking about how we set it up, but the public meetings were really, really helpful. You could take the slides down, Selena. Because I felt like every time we met, oh, sorry, I didn't realize my video was off. I apologize. Every time we met and got feedback, the draft got better. And so we would go back as a subcommittee, talk about it and say, oh, that was a great point. And I literally just made the changes right then and there. So I appreciate everybody's feedback that came throughout this process. I think we had three public meetings. And by the time we got to the August 20th meeting, I think the three of us felt really confident that we had a great product that updated what needed to be updated, changed what needed to be changed, but also took in consideration the feedback that we received specifically from panel members. So it was very, very helpful. And hopefully you guys are pleased with the final product and also feel that it would be helpful for you as you move forward with your operations in your business. So with that, I will take any questions.
I have one. Okay. Thank you so much for the work, Soledad, Abigail. I don't know, Abigail is not here today. Farah, thank you so much. This is amazing work. I have a quick question on the land acknowledgement, and I apologize for not sending that question sooner. I really haven't had time to until today to look at this. So one of the things I really appreciate the work put in the land acknowledgement. One of the things that I'm not seeing is action. So recognition of the land and the harm done is great, but I think as a group, looking at really including people who have been excluded historically and really listening to them, I think we also need to commit to action to right the wrongs of history. And so I'm wondering if that's something that you, the panel would consider maybe looking at adding to the land acknowledgement.
So we talked about that because we received kind of action-oriented suggestion from Amy Kane. And I actually liked the language that she sent us, but I felt that, okay, how do I'm trying to think of, I hesitated on putting that language in there because I'm hesitating on committing the panel to additional responsibility when the panel is slowly getting a point to managing the responsibilities it currently has. So though I feel that your recommendation is well-intentioned, I just don't know if putting that responsibility of wronging the past as it relates to, Indigenous and Native Americans is something that the panel should take up in its bylaws, because that is an expectation that you would be setting for the community that the community could hold you accountable for. So I'm just giving that as a point of what we discussed in our subcommittee and why we erred on keeping it out. Because when you put those things in your official documents, those are things that people can hold you accountable to. And I don't know if that's necessarily something that the panel is in a position to take on as a responsibility. So that's the context of our back and forth about the action-oriented language.
May I ask another question?
Of course.
If we're not taking responsibility or accountability for those actions as a police oversight panel, which is kind of our purpose, is to right the wrongs of injustice or misconduct by police, then what are we afraid of that we're taking on in addition to our current purpose by putting some action there?
So I would disagree with that purpose, but I'm also not a member of your panel.
Okay. It really depends. Maybe I don't quite understand what the actions that you're thinking about are.
Well, I mean, the action that you're talking about is righting the wrongs. I mean, I don't know if that is within the scope of a police oversight panel. I mean, your responsibility is to, be a source of complaints of potential police misconduct, and to be, a community view to provide a different perspective, and to ensure an outside level of accountability from the police department. And so I think it's just a matter of perspective. But as an outsider looking in, I'm hesitant because the expectations for police oversight panels are so high. Community always thinks that you can do more than you can. And this is adding another expectation that is kind of outside your purview. It's really bigger than the specific responsibility and point of the panel. And so, I mean, I don't, if others have other perspectives, obviously these are not my bylaws, these are your bylaws, but I just share that with you about really understanding the expectation that you would be putting out there, and yourselves being open to accountability for that if you put that in your bylaws.
I'm just gonna finish with one word there here. I think that land acknowledgement that don't lead to actions and that we can tie into the purpose of this panel are useless and are exactly what Indigenous people accuse land acknowledgement or saying people to whitewash, basically. It's just, we feel good because we do land acknowledgement, but there's no accountability and no responsibility behind that. And I'm just like, why do we even do land acknowledgement then?
Well, I do think that you guys should give yourselves a little bit of credit because this is an expansion of your current land acknowledgement. It includes more, it is an acknowledgement. I mean, and it includes the more tribes, and it's more specific, it's longer, and it's consistent with what the city of Boulder is doing. I took an excerpt from the city of Boulder land acknowledgement, but what we could do is just link the city of Boulder land acknowledgement, which is much more expansive. So I didn't want to add all that language because it was just going to make the bylaws longer, and I didn't think it was necessarily that necessary to do that. And so I just took really the most important parts that I thought were important for the panel in terms of that literal acknowledgement. But if the panel feels strongly about the action orientedness, then my recommendation would be just link the city of Boulder's actual acknowledgement, because it does have that action oriented language in there. And that would be a simple change. We would just delete those, I think it's 3 or 4 paragraphs that are there now, and just link the city of Boulder's acknowledgement. We went back and forth on that as well. So we landed on, obviously what we submitted was to include the 4 paragraphs.
Any other committee members want to talk about like your deliberation? I'm curious if you guys, this is something you talked about at length.
So I think that the purpose of the bylaws is to norm how we operate, or like this the structure in which we do our work in a very actionable way. So basically, how do we conduct our business, how the meetings are held, and that sort of thing that we didn't have before. I think there is reference to what you're mentioning, and in my opinion, it's kind of more pertinent in the ordinance. I think that we address that intention in the ordinance, but I don't know if it should be part of the bylaws to kind of address what you're referencing. I mean, I don't think that it's not important. Of course, it's super important, but I'm not sure if as a body of kind of rules or norms, if you want, that is providing structure for the work of the panel, if that is like that should be something that we will have to decide on for the bylaws themselves.
So then why do we have the land acknowledgement in the bylaws? If we're not doing that, then we could take them out and have each panel every year vote on what should be the land acknowledgements and how we take accountability for that.
I think again, they are included just so we can give structure to the to the work of the panel. So the conversation was to incorporate the non-acknowledgement, and we received a lot of information from different places, and we tried to come up with something that will make sense to add to the bylaws. I don't think that is I think at the end of the day, each board and community panel, they use what they want to use. So this maybe it's not the reflection of this panel, and we use something different.
This is making me think about like the purpose of the panel, which has its roots in 2020 and George Floyd, and land acknowledgements are a way just to like acknowledge the history of land, but like kind of zooming in on our purpose, I wonder what it would be like to have an acknowledgement that's like, we acknowledge like the continued brutalization of Black and brown people in this country, and like that's our purpose.
Do we have that statement in our bylaws, like originally, like a mission statement, a purpose statement?
I don't think that there was a reference to a document that was going to be created.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear Victor's question.
It wasn't a real question.
So can I just add, I'm gonna pipe in just really quick before Chico. So we wanted to update the bylaws, but we also wanted to kind of respect also what was put into the original bylaws, right? This is the same approach we took with the ordinance. So as someone who's not from the area, who doesn't really know about the history of Colorado, I made the assumption that the reason why the land acknowledgement language was included in the original bylaws is that it's part of the historical context of Colorado and Boulder, right? And so, but not necessarily specifically tied to the police oversight panel, because there are other boards and commissions who utilize the same language from the city's land acknowledgement in the same way. So in my mind, it was something bigger than the panel. It was more of literally a recognition. But I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to sound like this is not important, because it is important, but this particular issue is not necessarily a substantive issue about the police oversight panel, right? And so when you look at what we really changed in the bylaws, that's where I feel like our conversation should be. And I'm not saying that the land acknowledgement isn't important, but this was one of the feedback that we got, saying, can we update it? And we updated it, right? But there are other substantive matters that we did change that affect how you do business that we're not talking about. So I just give that to you, and want to thank Chico for giving me grace, because I bumped him.
Well, you couldn't have said it any better regarding substantive matters. And note that we're negating the land acknowledgement, what has been done. But I feel that just reference to what we have in the city bylaws should suffice, instead of us coming up with our own. That will just make everything uniform across the board, whether you look at the city, whether you look at what we do. Then regarding actionable items and whether we should, I'm a bit hesitant, and I hear you, Farah, regarding whether that's within our purview and what the city ordinances say and what we can do, can't do. I think that should be the guiding light or our North Star. There are a lot of other things that we want to do or we want to aspire to do, but our hands are tied. City ordinances is our North Star.
I wanted to ask a couple of questions and possibly make a point, because it is something that I've often wondered. One, I do wonder if this is the place for it, if this is the place to tackle such a large mission. And are we indeed biting off more than we can chew? Is it purposeful? Is it purposeful for our group? Is that or are there other things we really should be taking on first? And so I think it needs to be dealt with, but whether or not we are able to handle it, I think there may be some other there perhaps is another home for this. And I don't know what that home is, but but certainly it certainly is something that needs to be addressed. Something that I know I've had several conversations with other groups, and basically what they end up asking is, okay, and and after we read, and what action? What are we doing to make it better? What are we doing to change it? After you read that, or after you state it. So I wish I had answers right now. I just have more questions, just like you guys. What can we do? Is this the best use of this space right now? So I'd like to hear more from others.
But I'll be
What they think.
for one moment. I have a friend who graduated from Naropa in 2022. He was a Marine veteran, disabled, and he moved to Alaska and bought about 60 acres of land and gave half of it to the local indigenous groups there. So I know that is one way to give land back, is to buy it and give it back. I know that there's chiefs that have done the same thing. Chiefs have bought land, privatized it, or whatever, bought privatized land and given it to their indigenous groups. So those are the only options I've really heard.
So I know we have to vote on this. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, going to what Madeline said, number one, it's not the purpose of this group. And I wouldn't support an action. I mean, the wrongs that have been done in colonization are thousands of years old. And there's nothing that we're going to do on our own to right that. All this land here was stolen, basically under false pretenses. And I'm sorry, but nobody's going to give it back. Not in my lifetime, I don't think. And that's not why I got on this panel. And if I look at it from how Indigenous people are treated in the justice system, I think that's the work. And that's the action that I got on this to take, not to look at how am I going to right thousands of years of wrongs of Indigenous peoples. I'm not, like, land acknowledgements are very performative and they're created to make people feel good. And they're not really designed to be action oriented. And you have to involve so many tribal entities to really do something that even within tribal entities, there's not agreement on what's the correct work to right the wrongs. I mean, the Navajo Nation by this government wasn't allowed to have electricity for up until the last 10 years. And now they're putting solar power because they're getting grants. And so it's really complex. So I don't mind having it in the bylaws. I wouldn't create any action out of it other than the action that I got on this panel for, which is to look at how the justice system treats Indigenous and people of color. And that to me is the action that we're already taking. And it's already codified in the work that we're doing. And for me, that's enough. Because I have other avenues and places I can go to for tribal kinds of things and working on those in different ways. So that would be my approach.
Not sure who to look to.
Just go ahead.
Okay,
Where you at?
this makes me wonder if this sounds so paradoxical to me, but like, if it's, more harmful to have, performative land acknowledgement on our government paper. And maybe we should figure out if it's not gonna be action based.
Well, Indigenous people have said, you guys have a good land acknowledgement. We've had an Indigenous person on this panel, and we just interviewed people for the police thing who were Indigenous, and they say, oh, I look to your meetings, you have a good thing. So what do Indigenous people say? Hey, you guys are doing a good job. So
Okay,
That's
Take it
good.
out, say that's, they're designed to acknowledge what happened here, not so much change it. So it is good.
So we do need to vote on this, and we're past our break time. So
Victor, what are we voting on? Just this item or?
no, we're voting on
But-
approval of the entire bylaws, but then we're discussing the land acknowledgement.
We can't vote on something unless we go through it.
Unless we what?
We've gone through it.
Unless we go through it. Are we saying we've gone through the entire things? Because Pharaoh was saying there are certain substantive issues that we needed to discuss. So have we gone through those to vote?
No, that was part of my presentation. What I was saying is that, we spend a lot of time talking about the land acknowledgement, but there are things we significantly changed how you do your order of business. We significantly changed your committee structure. We significantly changed, you know what I mean? The fact that you now have to do a roll call vote when you do your case review. These are things we've talked about, but those are substantive things that impact your monthly, maybe even daily work. Whereas, the land acknowledgement does not. And so that's why I wanted to be very clear. I'm not saying that the land acknowledgement is not important. I think it's a very important issue. I want to rest assured everybody, we went back and forth on it. And if I want to be very honest, I personally kind of wanted to delete it, but I thought that it would be offensive given the history of the Native people in Colorado. So that's why I never recommended deleting it, because I felt like it was there for a reason. And I wanted to honor the work of the original panel members who wrote the bylaws. So it was a great suggestion, I think that came from Meline, to expand it, and we did. So I thought that made us go back and look and do some research and say, okay, yeah, we should expand it. But, I wanted to focus our conversation on the substantive part of the bylaws, because if you approve it today, your business changes today.
So essentially, that's what our focus is on. That's what we're going to be voting on, as opposed to the land acknowledgement issue. It is, yeah, absolutely an important issue, but today, for the sake of the business going forward, that's what we'd be voting on. And so that's what we're voting on, right, y'all? Right?
Yes, Teresa?
Okay.
Thanks, Victor. So I did want to just mention that if someone wanted to make a motion to remove or change the land acknowledgement, you could do that and then have a motion to approve the bylaws. Or you could just do a motion to approve the bylaws absent the land acknowledgement. I'm not saying that's what you should do. I just want to make sure you know it's an option.
Was it appropriate for us to just handle one piece at a time?
I think we have one more comment. Yeah.
I just want to say, I appreciated what you said, Bill, and I think that what you said is exactly, you know, what I want to see as an action, recognizing why we're here and what this justice system has been unfair to Indigenous people, and that as a panel, we will be particularly cognizant of the history of oppression. I don't know, I mean, I don't have the words and, you know, but of the history of oppression, and pay particular attention to Indigenous people, Black and brown people, and I agree, land acknowledgement, there's been plenty of oppression on the very land that we are on. But I know it's getting too long, and that's something that needs to be talked about further or not at all, I don't know, but I just wanted to share my opinion, because Farah, as you mentioned, you know, I'm the one who said we need the 3 lines of land acknowledgement was a farce. So what we put in it, to me, is really important, but apparently it's not. I mean, it's important to everybody here, but maybe not as important, so I'll just be quiet and see what happens next. I'm not gonna make a motion at this point. I think we can make a motion at a later point if we feel that we have the support of all the panelists. But at this point, I don't feel like I do, so.
Well, I don't want you to be quiet. Yeah, I think it's very, very, very important. But perhaps at a different time, like you just said, let's do what we can get done for now, which would be moving forward with the revised bylaws and getting that done, and then perhaps come back for to address the land acknowledgement a bit later. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. So just so we're clear, we have the option of someone moving the vote to address the land acknowledgement, and it can be voting to remove it, or, you know, whatever. That's one option. If we don't have that option, then we should move on to discuss if there's anything else that people wants to discuss regarding the bylaws. And you have the draft for a while, so I'm assuming if anyone has any questions, we can talk about those, and then we can vote. And also I want to remind people that in the new bylaws, we also have a way of changing the bylaws. So that's also something that can be done after we approve this revised bylaw. So there is a procedure to address changes in the bylaw. The only thing that we have is we need 2/3 of the panel vote in favor of that, and that change can be effected. So we have a way with the new bylaws to address anything that we want to change in the future, or for future panels too. So, sure.
Apologies, I just saw this in advance of the meeting, a few minutes before the meeting started, but it does look like on page 7, there's the term executive session when everything else said closed session. It is like the 5th line on page 7. So my suggestion is, if it's voted on, to have that be a change.
Yeah, changing the.
The terminology would be clear.
Yeah, I would consider that a servant's error, so that's super minor and not really a big deal.
Just wanted to bring it up.
I have a question about emergency meetings, special or emergency meetings that can be called by the co-chairs. Is there anywhere in there, I don't recall, but is there anywhere in there where the members of the panel could call for an emergency meeting, make a motion for an emergency meeting, or how would that happen?
I'm just pulling up the exact language. So for those that have it with them, it's section 9.14 on page 8. It specifically says that the co-chairs may call special and or emergency meetings at the discretion for substantial reasons warranting the convening thereof, and shall call such meetings upon written request of at least 3 members of the panel. Does that
Okay.
answer your question, Maylene?
Yeah, it does. For some reason, I had stopped at the previous paragraph and thought that was it.
Mhm. Okay, again, page 8, section 9.14.
Yeah.
Are there any other issues that people want to bring forward before we vote?
Need a motion in a second.
Motion to accept the bylaws as presented.
Second. And for this one, we need to do a roll call vote. How do I do? Do you name everyone? And everyone, or however, yeah, name is fine, it's just so we know who voted what. Start here, I'm just sure. Jason?
Affirmative.
Yes, it's good too.
Yeah.
That's lawyer opinions.
Yes. Hoda? Yes. Victor?
Yes.
Yes.
Lizzie? Yes. Bill?
Yes.
Evelyn? Yes. Chica?
Yes.
Madeline?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Good job, Sarah. Thank you.
Good job,
And Soledad and
And
Abigail.
everybody.
everybody.
Yeah, no, thank you to all of you. Our work isn't done yet, but this is a huge accomplishment for the panel. So I think we should all be proud of this work. But we have, we have a few more things to get done, but this is something that we should all be proud of. The ordinance was a big accomplishment. This is the second accomplishment for a very young panel. So I think everybody should be proud, and thank you for all your feedback and work on this.
And Sarah, thank you so
Thank-
much. I mean,
Thank you.
I know I raise hell sometimes, but I really, really appreciate the work that you put behind all this. It's been a lot of work, and Soledad and Abigail, thank you so much. That's a lot of hours that you put in.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
So we have a press release that will be upcoming in the next 7 days or so. Okay.
I also hope you will include it in your update to council, because don't you have an oversight update to council? So hopefully you'll include that too in there as an accomplishment of the panel.
Well, thank you so much, Farah. We're going ahead and take our 5-minute bio break.
Thank you.
So welcome back. Before I hand it off to Soledad, just a couple of things we didn't talk about. First was there's a new chief in town, no pun intended, sorry.
Sorry.
Please elaborate.
I think as everyone received the notification from Nuria and if not, saw the newspaper articles, Chief Redfern interim Chief Redfern was now Chief Redfern, as Victor just said. So I think he gets back from a pre-planned out-of-town trip tomorrow and has some work to do. So that's, I don't think we knew when we were putting this agenda together, whether or not we would know at this time. And I would also just like to, publicly thank all of the people who participated through submitting questions, coming to the community forum or watching the community forum online and submitting their ideas and thoughts and observations on the candidates. and especially the people who spent a whole day doing interviews for the semifinal round. So let me thank you, Victor, Soledad,
She's coming back.
Lizzie, and Madeline. That was a heavy lift for people who I know have other, busy day jobs, and still you took the time to spend all of that time and have the thoughtful conversations. Speaking of the chief, our Q3 meeting with the chief is scheduled for September 23rd. Unless I hear differently, that's going to be in person. So we will certainly be sending out a document where people can ask questions, have topics. I took some notes for things that people were asking about previously. There seems to be questions about data and some of the new dashboards. So we can work with that, but we'll be sending that out soon. And presumably the co-chairs and I will talk about that this Friday. Yeah. Any questions or thoughts about meeting with the chief now? Okay, and then. Thank you. Is there any magic to it? If we're doing. Okay, actually, no, if someone wants to talk about a potential confidential case review.
Yeah, so are we interested in going to confidential closed session so we can talk about case reviews, or are we going either way?
Are we taking a vote to go to closed session?
Yeah, we need a motion and we need a second, but I don't know, people feel the need.
Motion to a closed session.
Okay, let's go then. So we'll be back in 20 minutes for members of the public to know. Of course, after we vote, we will be back, so.
Sure, we come back and then we vote.
No, we vote for going. Okay, so for going to closed session. Okay. Let's go. We'll be back.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, so we're back in. Great. Okay, going back to our agenda then. And after the confidential case review, we're ready to vote.
All of these need to be roll call votes too,
Okay.
right? Going to the new bylaws.
Yep.
Yep,
Today.
they are effective today, yeah. Okay, thank you, let's go for it, okay. Who was reading? I'm reading, you're reading? I'm reading?
Can you read, please? I don't have anything in front of me.
Okay, so MI 2024-048. Do I need to read the whole description?
Oh, yeah, this one is.
Isn't that what we do normally?
This.
Sometimes you could just say officer 1, officer 2,
Okay,
sergeant number 1.
yeah. So this
Sherry.
is, go ahead, Sherry.
This is a case where we don't even know what the complaint is.
Okay,
So there aren't allegations classified.
there are allegations, but we still don't have a complainant witness? Okay,
Yeah.
with the information we have, let's vote on this one. Okay, so to review MI 2024-048, Abigail,
No.
Bill,
No.
Lizzie,
No.
Milan,
No.
Victor,
No.
Luna,
No.
Jason,
Yes.
Madeline. You're muted.
No.
Chico,
No.
my vote is also no. Okay, MI 2024-049. Is Rule 2, Section 1, Rule 2, violated the complainant witness first amendment. 42. Yeah, that will be the chart, the complaint. So again, for reviewing this case, Abigail,
No.
Bill,
No.
Busy,
No.
Milan.
No.
No.
Luna,
No.
Jason,
No.
Madeline,
No.
Chico,
No.
I vote no. Okay, for case MI 2024-050, Officer 101. Integrity and value. And that would be, yeah, that would be, so it's a complaint to, I guess, Officer 1 for Rule 1 violation. Votes to review this case again, Abigail.
Yes.
Bill? No? Okay. Lizzie? Milan?
Yes.
Victor?
No.
Luna?
No.
Jason?
No.
Madeline?
Yes.
Chico?
No.
I vote yes. Okay. 6?
6 no's.
6 no's and 3 for okay. For yes, okay, sorry. Are you keeping track?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm not counting. MI 2024-051. Officer 1, Rule 2, conformance with the law. Officer 2, Rule 2. To review this case, Abigail,
No.
Bill,
No.
Busy,
No.
Milan,
No.
Victor,
No.
Luna,
No.
Jason,
No.
Madeline,
No.
Chico,
No.
and I vote no too. MI 2024-052, Officer 1, Rule 4, respect for others. Officer 2, Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders. Officer 3, Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders. Votes to review this case. Abigail,
No.
Bill,
No.
Lizzie,
No.
Milan,
No.
Victor,
No.
Luna,
No.
Jason,
No.
Madeline,
No.
Chico,
No.
I vote no. MI 2024-053, Officer 1, Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders. Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders, integrity. Rule 6, use of force. Sergeant 1, Rule 1, compliance with rules and general orders, customer service. Rule 1, compliance with values, failed to register a complaining witness complaint with PSU. And Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders, report writing, failed to document the complaint in accordance to general orders. Sergeant 2, Rule 1, compliance with values, rules, and general orders. Report writing, failed to document the complaining witness complaint. That will be it. So to review this case, Abigail? Yes. Bill?
No.
Lizzie? Milan?
Yes.
Victor?
No.
Luna?
No.
Jason?
No.
Madeline?
Yes.
Chico?
No.
And I vote yes. Okay, MI 2024-054. Officer 1, Rule 5, police authority and public trust. Rule 4, respect for others. Officer 2, Rule 5, police authority and trust. Surgeon 1, Group 5, Police Authority and Trust. To review this case, Abigail,
No.
Bill,
No.
Lizzie,
No.
Milan,
Yes.
Victor,
No.
Luna,
No.
Jason,
No.
Madeline,
Yes.
Chico,
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay, following case, MI 2024-055. Surgeon 1, Group 1, compliance with values, rules and general orders, integrity. Okay, to review this case, Abigail,
Yes.
Bill,
No.
Lizzie,
Yes.
Milan,
Yes.
Victor,
No.
Luna.
Abstain.
Jason,
Yes.
Madeline,
Yes.
Chico,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, and then we talk about this next case that still doesn't have a number, and we're tabling that case for next week, right? Okay. Great, are we assigning cases? Just one. Just one. 055. 055, okay. Volunteers, Milan,
Madeline?
Madeline, Chico,
Yeah.
Luna.
I'm volunteering you, Madeline.
Okay.
Okay, so we have four. Luna, Chico, Madeline, and Milan.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. And now we will move into IPM report. I can still, it's all good. We can
I have to switch to my
give
phone.
you some time. Okay. Thank you. So we know that a couple of panelists are moving to, to their phones, so please drive safe. And I will see you next month. Okay, drive safe. Don't look at the camera. It stopped.
It's a nightmare. Being on the panel for 4 years.
Yeah. Okay, we're ready. Thank you, Terry.
Okay, this is the September 2024 Boulder Police Oversight Panel meeting and the monitors reports. So the full case review data for August of 2024 is full file case reviews completed were 8. Thank you.
Wow.
That was a lot of work. We are waiting for 8 from BPD, which almost completely overlapped with the 8 that we just did. There are only 9 cases, well, now 10, the ones you just voted on, that are awaiting panel review. And I don't expect anything in like the next couple of weeks. So thank you all. The cases that have been completed and closed at BPD from the last month were starting with MI 2024-019. A mother complained on behalf of her adult sons who were arrested following a physical encounter at a club. Officers arrested son 1 for being in violation of a court order prohibiting him from consuming alcohol, and son 2 was initially detained and transported to detox and then the hospital. After being released, officers encountered son number 2 at the scene of a reported ATM vandalism. Son number 2 was arrested for obstruction and assault to a police officer. The mother's allegations were disproven by body-worn camera. And the results of this were For Officer 1 of Rule 1, General Order 240, in-car camera, body-worn camera, and personal recording devices, that he deactivated his body-worn camera. I had initially recommended that this be unfounded in accordance with General Order 120-1, Section 8. The panel, upon their review, recommended unfounded, and the department also unfounded it. Second allegation, Rule 4, respect for others, broke the mobile phone of son number 1. Again, I recommended unfounded in accordance with General Order 120-1, Section 8. The panel also recommended unfounded, and the department also unfounded the case. For another allegation against Officer 1, it was a Rule 3. Truthfulness, lied to the mother by telling her that her sons were not under arrest. I again recommended that this be unfounded in accordance with General Order 120-1, Section 8. The panel agreed. They recommended unfounded, and the department, their final determination was unfounded for that allegation. For Officer 2, Rule 1 deactivated her body-worn camera. The independent police monitor recommended unfounded in accordance with General Order 120-1, Section 8. The panel also recommended that allegation be unfounded, and the department's final determination was unfounded. Officer 3, a Rule 4, respect for others, dropped off son number 2 in the middle of nowhere and told him to get the fuck out. I recommended this be unfounded in accordance with General Order 120-1, Section 8. The panel also recommended that it be unfounded, and the department unfounded it in their final determinations. Officer number 4, Rule 6, use force, rubbed a gun into son number 2's face. I made a General Order 120-1, Section 8 unfounded recommendation. The panel also recommended it be unfounded, and the department unfounded the allegation. And there was an unknown officer which had a Rule 6 violation, use of force, beat son number 2 while he was restrained in handcuffs. I recommended that be unfounded in accordance with General Order 120-1, Section 8, and the panel agreed with an unfounded recommendation, and the final disposition was unfounded by the department. MI 2024-043, a woman under a conservatorship moved from a different state to Boulder, where she began engaging in conflict with her neighbors, landlord, and the homeowners association. She began contacting multiple city agencies to file complaints about civil action. She admitted that these complaints were intended to impede eviction actions from her landlord. The evidence established that the Boulder Police Department officers took appropriate action on a complaint she made about a criminal allegation and documented her civil complaints. Through agency collaboration, BPD learned that she was acting in defiance of her court-ordered conservatorship. Despite her numerous complaints, her dissatisfaction with BPD either did not constitute alleged misconduct or was refuted by body-worn camera evidence. Accordingly, this case was administratively closed without creating allegations against any of the officers who responded to her numerous calls for service. BPD was actively working with outside agencies to reconnect her with her care team. MI 2023-044, a complaint was made against a BPD photo enforcement officer for failing to yield to a pedestrian on a crosswalk. The complainant did not want to proceed with a formal complaint, but instead wanted the photo enforcement officer to receive counseling on driving cautiously, especially regarding pedestrian and bicyclist right of way. The supervisor of the photo enforcement officer provided this counseling, and the case was administratively closed. MI 2024-047, a man complained about an insufficient investigation conducted in May of 2022 by a former BPD officer into cross allegations between neighbors in an apartment building. Review of the underlying 2022 investigation identified that the file contained appropriate documentation, including critical surveillance footage. Attempts to reach the man who complained were unsuccessful. Due to the lack of cooperation, time passed since the reported incident, and the subject officer no longer being employed by BPD, this complaint was administratively closed. MI 2023-050, the head of a children's program complained that officers 1 and 2 responded inappropriately to a safe to tell tip.
Reportedly, the officers revealed that they were responding to a safe to tell tip and provided the names of parties involved to teenage camp staff working the desk. The program head was clear that he did not want to file a formal complaint, but only wanted officers to be trained to respond better in the future. The investigation revealed that Officer 1 had already been counseled by Officer 2 about not revealing that they were responding to a safe to tell investigation. Officer 1 was in training at the time of the incident, and this was his first response to a safe to tell tip. This concern was administratively closed due to preference of the complaining program. Regarding our case statistics, so in August 2024, I classified 11 complaints. 8 of those were misconduct investigations, 2 of those were community inquiries, and 1 of them I have referred to go to the conflict facilitation process. I observed 7 interviews. There were 0 critical incident scene responses, and I deemed 7 cases thorough and complete. In the month of August, BPD closed 5 cases. As of September 1st, the open docket was 35 cases. Of those, there are 33 cases that are already classified. 2 of those were pending, are at the time pending classification, and there are 13 cases in the PSU preliminary investigation stage. And we have only 1 case that is open from 2023. That is MI 2023-034, and that panel case review was completed last week on the 3rd and sent to BPD. Regarding the December 17th fatal officer involved shooting, I had previously requested that they prepare the case for panel review. And I was told that there are still force review final documents that either need to be generated or going through chain of command. So I'm going to keep you updated, but hopefully we'll be seeing that case soon. And the community engagement report from August 2024 was, I had the opportunity to engage with the emergency response connectors at the Boulder Police Department. This was a group of individuals, mostly from the Latino community. It was an interesting experience. I got a tour of the department as just a community member, so I saw things I haven't seen before, actually. And at the end, they had a lot of questions about the oversight system. So they have all of our information, and it seems like there is interest in that community about learning more. So that is definitely, those are some relationships that I think we should pursue. Also, I attended the BPD firearms qualifications and training. And one really interesting thing that I learned that I thought might be interesting to y'all is that they're training them on using a low ready position when they are entering situations. And this is based on a study that basically showed that in exchange for 11/100ths of a second of slower response time by having a weapon pointed lower, they can reduce shoot errors by half, basically. And when I talked with them, some people also said that it really helps prevent tunnel vision with officers. So it gives them a little bit of extra time to see whether someone's like pulling out a cell phone or pulling out a firearm. I have the Engineering Resilience is the name of the article. And just this morning, the professor, I reached out to him to get it. He sent me that and another article that he wrote. I've put them in our SharePoint files folders for you to read. And that is the end of the Independent Police Monitor report. I would like to remind people that ride-alongs should be done by October 19th, if you have not done them already. If you have not done a ride-along, please, reach out to me or reach out to Bethany so that we can arrange something. Bethany also had offered that maybe if someone is experiencing some sort of physical challenge, that maybe sitting in dispatch or dispatch could also be an option. So please reach out to me about that. This is also last call. Oh,
Chico, do you have a question?
Yes, I was going to say, Sherry, could you amend your records to show that I did the ride along with Sterling?
I think you are checked off.
The records are showing that I haven't done it. I was just checking today.
Oh, okay.
The spreadsheet that you did.
Okay. We'll update that. Thank you for letting me know that.
All right.
Anything else?
Nope, I'm
Okay.
done.
Okay.
You lower my hand.
Okay. Yeah, last call for Nicole. If anyone wants to go, the end of this meeting is the last time to let us know. In the next few days, Selena is going to make arrangements for people who want to attend.
Don't jump, don't run.
Did you guys, would you recommend going? You went when it was here, right? Did you two go?
We went to Chicago last year
Oh, cool.
and 100%.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this.
What kind of funding is available for like everything or nothing or?
I mean, I can't give you vacation time to do it from your
Okay.
job,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Everything's covered.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and you get a snack.
That's it. My parents live in Tucson.
Tucson.
That's like 5 days, right?
Yeah.
It's long.
What I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping that people, this year they have that community panel.
Yeah.
On Sunday, which I'm hoping is really, really helpful. And if so, then maybe that becomes an option in the future, if it is an option to just attend that day. Or, like 1 or 2 days or something, maybe send more people for shorter times.
Yes, we went to a whole thing last year. This review is, I really enjoy it. It was worth it, you get to talk to all the family members and different ways of oversight too, so it's, yeah, very.
Noon tomorrow?
New tomorrow? Yeah, one day, good day. Someone wanna go with me?
Milan.
So my dad wants to go.
But if you wanna go,
already.
I can.
Oh, you two wanna go? I'm sorry, I thought we were filling spots.
I went last year, and if no one wanted to go.
Gotcha.
And we had that in the budget, I could go, but if you
Okay.
wanna go, same.
We'll figure it out.
You,
Okay, I
you
just want, I
can
want
go.
someone to go. Yeah.
you should go then, because I went last year, I had them,
So
so,
now you should go.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll figure it out by tomorrow.
If you're seriously considering it, like, let us know.
Yeah.
We can, maybe do like an extension sort of thing. It's just, we weren't getting any interest besides Milan and Soledad, so, but now it's coming.
Sorry, I interpreted that as no spots. Yes.
Okay,
I think it's because we've already gone that we're really opening it up.
I think I actually did the case review updates, but I really, like some of you, Soledad was MVP this past month for doing case reviews, and especially knowing that, she's also doing the bylaws. But yeah, it seemed like
so busy.
every day we were seeing each other for a while. But really, this really big lift is great. I think it was a crash course in people getting to understand case reviews and what that entails. And I'm really glad that we're at a more reasonable place with the case reviews. So thank you so much. I know it's a huge lift. I guess I have just also, did people receive, I sent out a newsletter?
Yes.
Can someone forward that to me? Because I still have not received it. So that's gonna be quarterly. If people have ideas, of things that like sometime in October or so that they want to, have as a topic, let us know. And the hope is that the annual report is finalized and goes out next week.
Yeah.
So,
And the final report.
Jerry, sure.
Yeah.
For this year.
Yeah. Okay, so we ran through the agenda. Is there anything that someone wants to discuss that wasn't submitted to the agenda before? Yes.
So during the closed session. Back up. Sometimes I can sense that there's disappointment when we vote not to review a case, and I don't want. I feel like I would love to know beforehand if someone's really feeling strongly about reviewing a case. And I don't know if there's an appropriate and ethical way for us to give each other that information, but like during the closed session, could we say, like, does anyone want to like advocate for, and it doesn't even need to be like an argument, it can just be like, I really hope we do these three. Like, is anything like that appropriate, or would there be a way that we could share that a little bit?
Yeah, I will have an answer, but we might defer to Teresa right now.
I think she's still with us.
If Teresa's with us. Okay, great.
Here. Hi. Sorry, I was listening, but it took me a second to realize that you all were sending it my way. So could you in closed session say to each other, you know, I feel strongly about taking this one up? You certainly could say that. During a vote would not be the appropriate time to say that. So it seems like the most appropriate time would be when you all are discussing and deliberating.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Okay, so we're getting to the end of our meeting, and we have, for the last time, public comment at the very end of the meeting, but I don't know if we have any members of the public.
There's one.
Is it Sarah?
Two.
Oh,
There's.
okay, can you,
Should I just say the name?
yes, if you wanna go ahead and.
Sarah. You have the ability to unmute if you want to comment.
No, thank you. I'm just observing this evening.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. This person has like a no name.
I think you just say whoever has this number or whatever, you know.
The person who has Y, you are unmuted. Would you like to comment?
You have to mute themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
They have to.
You have to unmute yourself if you want to speak.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're good. Rose? Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll see you in a few days. With the meeting with the chiefs.
Yes.
For next month.
September 20.
Thank you.
September 23rd.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you,
Thank you.
Teresa.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.